Good morning, Wright State University, and welcome to the Wright Morning Show on WWSU. Start your day the right way with us. We will be covering current events in the news, local, national, and from Wright State. We will provide a daily dose of inspiration and positivity to lighten your day. And we will have a special feature depending on the day of the week. So grab your tea or your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the Wright Morning Show. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Wright Morning Show on WWSU Radio for, it's Thursday, December 2nd, 2021. I knew it was December 2nd, but I couldn't think of what day of the week it was. I should know this because I have my Thoughtful Thursday segment ready to go for today.
Oh, boy.
This is Triple P, and I am joined this morning on the phone by Harmony. How are you doing this morning?
Oh, we're playing a game of let's try to put everything away after they gave me new carpet. So, trying to figure out where stuff was before, but yeah, doing it different, and having a cat trying to climb into everything that you're doing does not help the situation.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yes, I have a curious Moogle.
Curiosity killed the cat, as they said.
Well, let's hope it doesn't kill the cat before I kill the cat. And no, I would never kill Moogle.
All right. Let us get into Life Gemma's not going to be joining us this morning because she is feeling sick, but let's get into our current events for today. First off, we're going to start with local news. Let's see what we got here. Dayton Daily News has an article about community conversations, making our region the best for the military and the veterans. So you can check that out at DaytonDailyNews.com. From WHIO Radio, one person injured after a truck crashes into a Kettering garage.
Ouch.
One person was transported to an area hospital after a single truck crashed into a garage on Woodman Drive. Their condition is unknown. Kettering police said that the driver of the truck was the only occupant when the truck went off the road and into the garage. Police said the occupants of the home on the Woodman Drive were home at the time of the crash but not injured. So you can read more at WHIO.com. Dayton Daily News has an article about the city of Dayton revealing a spending plan for $138 million in federal funds. So check out what they're going to be spending it on at DaytonDailyNews.com. Hopefully it's better roads.
Yeah, no doubt.
We need to get rid of all those potholes. From Hamilton Journal News, don't be a Scrooge. Recycle your holiday lights in these bins around Dayton. When holiday lights from seasons past refuse to cooperate, instead of throwing them in the garbage with frustration, Five Rivers Metro Parks has a greener and more peaceful solution. So this is the third holiday season that Five Rivers and Cohen Recycling are providing bins at 7 Metro Parks locations throughout Dayton, where residents can drop off holiday lights to be recycled. At the end of the season, Cohen will make a donation to the Five Rivers Metro Parks Foundation based on how many lights are recycled. Since these partnerships started, Cohen has donated a total of $3,000 to the Five Rivers Metro Parks Foundation to support Metro Parks' mission to protect the Dayton region's natural heritage, according to a release. The partnership we have with Cohen allows us to help people to be more sustainable during the holidays, when people generally send the most waste to the landfill, said Tim Pritchard, Five Rivers Metro Parks Sustainability Coordinator. It's really easy to do something good for yourself and the environment in one trip. Plan a park outing where there is a lights recycling bin, drop off your lights, and enjoy some time outdoors. You can read more at journal-news.com. From WHIO, pro-life, pro-choice supporters rally in Dayton virtually as SCOTUS hears Mississippi abortion case.
Oh,
That's
boy.
right. Today's the big day for that abortion case.
Yeah, geez. Look out. More rioting.
Yeah. The United States Supreme Court is hearing a challenge to a Mississippi abortion law to, I'm sorry, it was yesterday. It sparked rallies from pro-life and pro-choice advocates in Dayton. Pro-life supporters gathered in front of the Dayton Federal Building while Dayton Mayor Nan Whaley hosted a virtual pro-choice rally. About 4 dozen pro-life supporters listened to brief speeches about the abortion battle, but mostly lined up along the streets around the federal building. They held signs that urged the end of abortion. Many pro-life supporters at the rally said that the Supreme Court ruling in this Mississippi challenge case could overturn Roe v. Wade in 1973. Skipping ahead a little bit, pro-life supporters say they want to protect women and unborn children. That's disappointing to see that WHIO doesn't have what the pro-choice side has to say about this issue. Kind of shows a little bit of a media bias if you ask me, but you can read more at WHIO.com.
Everybody's got a freaking opinion.
Mm-hmm. Including us. And the views and opinions of us do not reflect the views and opinions of WWSU Radio, Wright State, or their entities.
Ooh.
Dayton Daily News has an article about a local company looking to open a Dayton plant and add 60 jobs. I believe it's a storage unit. Like we need another one of those.
Like we need more of that crap. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
From WDTN, Vandalia police are investigating a nativity scene and van fires at a church. Police are investigating 2 suspicious fires at a Vandalia church yesterday. Vandalia police told 2 News that firefighters were called to 2 fires at Hopeland Church on Miller Lane around 9 p.m. A van was on fire in the parking lot, along with a nativity scene in front of the church.
Oh, God.
No one was injured in the fires, only property was damaged. Vandalia police said the fires are under investigation because they are considered to be suspicious.
I'd say so.
I guess somebody doesn't like Christianity. I mean, that's all fine and dandy. Like and dislike whatever religions you want, but don't burn stuff down.
Things. Yeah. Not cool.
From Dayton.com, St. Anne's is to host Holiday on the Hill, a neighborhood tour. There's always something new to learn about our own backyard in Dayton, and St. Anne's Holiday on the Hill is a perfect way to do that this holiday season. St. Anne's Hill, one of Dayton's revitalized inner city historic districts, is ready to welcome guests to enjoy the houses, businesses, histories, and more at the neighborhood's first ever Holiday on the Hill, a neighborhood tour. The event is scheduled to take place Saturday and Sunday, December 11th and 12th from 4 to 8 p.m. The event is free, and more information can be found at facebook.com.
Okay.
To read more at Dayton.com. From WDTN, Miami Valley health leaders say that Christmas could be dangerous if Omicron spreads.
What?
The Omicron, the new coronavirus variant.
Oh, that. I'm like, what are you talking about? Sounds like some weird word you just made up.
No. A person in California is the first in the U.S. to have an identified COVID-19 case of the Omicron variant. Miami Valley health leaders expect that more cases will be found, but are worried that if precautions are not taken, it could impact Christmas celebrations. COVID-19 cases in the Miami Valley have continued to increase after the Thanksgiving weekend.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Let's
to be
all
expected.
get together and not wear more masks.
If this trend continues, some health leaders say that Christmas may have to look similar to last year.
Cancel Christmas.
Yeah, people already want to cancel Christmas for religious reasons, so why not?
We'll
Burning
give
down
them a good
nativity
reason to cancel
scenes.
Christmas.
Yeah.
COVID. Oh, no. Never mind.
Wait, what?
Nothing.
Continuing. It will not be...
I'm going through stuff and putting things away, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm finding things that's like broken and all kinds of crap.
Oh, no. So continuing the article, it will not be a surprise if Omicron spreads quite thoroughly throughout the country, said Public Health Dayton and Montgomery County Public Information Officer Dan Sofoletto. And I wish I had more hope, personally had more hope, but I agree that unfortunately I believe that this strand is going to spread just as rapidly, if not more rapidly, than the Delta variant.
Yeah.
You can read more at WDTN.com.
They should have just called it Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi variant.
Abu Dhabi variant. Omicron Kenobi.
Obi-Wan Kenobi Corona. Who forgot my lemon wedge with that Corona? I know it's serious, but geez, let's have a little bit of humor, you know?
Dayton Daily News has an article about the NAACP president and community members calling for apology and action in Owensby case. You can check that out at DaytonDailyNews.com. The Best of Dayton contest is still going on Dayton.com. They have an article about how to get the winners when they're announced next week. Yeah, that's right. Next week is when the winners will be announced for the Best of Dayton.
Good.
From WDTN, a man was sentenced for a Xenia woman's overdose death.
Oh, God.
A 31-year-old man was sentenced to prison Wednesday for an overdose death in Xenia Township. Christopher Jones pleaded guilty to one count of involuntary manslaughter and was sentenced to 7 years in prison, according to a release from Greene County prosecuting attorney David D. Hayes.
Oh, my God. Triple B, I'm too short.
How do you think I feel? I'm short, too.
No, you're taller than I am. I can't reach.
So Hayes said on June 20th, 2018, Greene County deputies went to the 1900 block of Hook Road where they found Bethany Scott unresponsive in her bedroom with drug paraphernalia nearby. Medical personnel believe Scott was suffering from a drug overdose and immediately started to administer medical assistance. She was taken to Greene Memorial Hospital and later to Kettering Medical Center. Scott never regained consciousness and died 2 days later on June the 22nd.
Wow.
Yeah, you can read more at WDTN.com. Dayton Business Journal has an article about the plans for the first new facility at the former Good Samaritan Hospital site in West Dayton. So you can check that out. From WDTN, Wright State students are collecting toys for Dayton children's. Wright State Educators Rising is collecting toys for the fundraiser Christmas for Kids. According to a release by Wright State University, new toys can be donated at 378 Allen Hall, where they will be collected before members of WSER, sounds like a radio station, send them to Christmas for Kids. Oh no, what did you drop?
I'm dropping everything.
It's just really special because we could still touch children's lives without being in the classroom, said Samantha Fade Lee, a sophomore early childhood education major and Educators Rising member. I really want to see Dayton wake up and be super excited, just like we all are at Christmas. Christmas for Kids was organized by For Love of Children, a volunteer agency that serves neglected, abused, or in-need children in the greater Dayton area. From WHIO, Dayton traffic. Nothing is currently in effect in terms of traffic crashes or accidents on the roadways, which is good.
Thank God.
They have prices for gas. You can check that out at WHIO.com. All right, I think we're going to move now into our local weather forecast. So first off, we're going to go to the current weather brought to you by Tomorrow.io. The current weather at Wright State University is clear and 49 degrees. The wind is coming from the southwest at 13 miles per hour, gusting to 28 miles per hour. It is very breezy out there this morning.
It is very breezy, yes. I have my door open.
The relative humidity is 77%. The barometric pressure is 29.81 inches. And the visibility is 10 miles. Air quality moderate. UV index none.
And it's a beautiful day.
Here is your forecast. So it is going to be very breezy from now until 12 p.m., according to Tomorrow.io. It is also going to start getting cloudy as well, but then it's going to clear up after 2:30 before more clouds return at 8 p.m. Temperatures are going to approach 50 degrees very shortly. They're going to peak at 58 degrees around 3 p.m. before starting to cool off after that.
Special.
Here's your extended weather forecast from the National Weather Service at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Today, mostly sunny. I personally would say cannot rule out a possible chance of a shower. There are a few showers currently on the radar. It is unlikely they will reach us, but there is a slight chance of drizzle this morning and early afternoon.
Wouldn't doubt that whatsoever.
Yeah, high temperature around 60. Tonight, mostly clear, low in the lower 30s. Friday, mostly sunny, high in the mid-50s. Friday night, mostly clear, low around 30. Saturday, sunny, high in the mid-40s. Saturday night, partly cloudy, low around 30. Sunday, a chance of rain and snow in the morning, transitioning to all rain in the afternoon, high in the mid-50s. Sunday night, rain likely, low around 30. And finally, Monday, a chance of snow in the morning, otherwise mostly sunny and breezy throughout the day. High in the upper 30s. It's going to be much cooler on Monday. So enjoy this semi-warm weather while you can.
Oh, God.
We're now going to go to global and national news, and we're going to be talking about abortion at the court. And this is from the New York Times Morning Edition by David Leonhardt and Ian Prasad Philbrick. All 6 Republican appointees on the Supreme Court have long signaled that they have qualms with the Roe v. Wade decision. What's been less clear is whether at least 5 of them, enough to make a majority, would be willing to overturn Roe, which would require scrapping decades of legal precedents. Doing so has downsides for the court. It would look more just like another partisan branch of government that changes policy when its members change, rather than a nonpartisan interpreter of legal principles. At least a few justices are already worried about the court's image. This court is not comprised of a bunch of partisan hacks, Justice Amy Coney Barrett said in a recent speech. During yesterday's arguments over a Mississippi abortion law, the 3 Democratic appointees on the court tried to appeal on their conservative colleagues' concerns about the court's standing. If the justices overturn Roe v. Wade, Justice Stephen Breyer said, "Many Americans would say you're just politicians." Breyer added, "That's what kills us as an American institution." And the strategy has worked in the past. It has sometimes swayed Chief Justice John Roberts during his 16 years on the court, and also seemed to influence Barrett and Justice Brett Kavanaugh last year. On LGBTQ rights and Obamacare, the justices issued rulings that were more modest and consistent with precedent than a strictly partisan court would have issued. On abortion, however, many court watchers think that the strategy is likely to fail this time. Oof. So the article goes into more detail talking about after Ginsburg, the justices' words. So each justice has a little bit of a statement in terms of the arguments, and they go into more analysis as well. So you could check all of that out at the New York Times Morning Edition. Other headlines this morning from the New York Times. Health officials identified Omicron in the United States, a patient in California who had returned from South Africa. Get boosted now, Dr. Anthony Fauci urged. All adults are qualified to get a booster shot, so get your booster. President Biden will extend a mask requirement on airplanes, trains, and buses through mid-March. He is also planning to announce insurance reimbursement for at-home tests and new travel protocols. The coronavirus survives inside tiny airborne particles of water, according to a simulation. Donald Trump first tested positive for COVID days before telling the public and before standing on a debate stage with Biden, former officials said. Stacey Abrams, a Democrat who narrowly lost the 2018 Georgia governor's race, is running again. Charlie Baker, the moderate Republican governor of Massachusetts who faced a Trump-backed primary challenger, will not seek a third term. Senate Republicans are threatening a government shutdown over Biden's vaccine mandate for large employers. A fourth student passed away after Tuesday's shooting in Michigan.
Oh.
Yeah. Prosecutors charged a 15-year-old with terrorism and murder and are considering charging his parents as well.
Oh, God.
Mm-hmm.
That's not right, unless something is with the parents that pushed them to do it.
I was going to say, we'll find out. I'm sure Cheddar News has a little bit more information about this, so we'll get into that. Some critics are questioning the purpose of active shooter drills in schools. The Women's Tennis Association suspended tournaments in China after the star player Peng Shuai vanished from public life. Oh, gosh. A witness testifying in Justy Smollett's trial on charges of filing a false police report said that the actor wanted me to fake beat him up. Jacqueline Avant, 81, a philanthropist and the wife of the music producer Clarence Avant, was fatally shot, according to police. We're all in triage mode. Staff shortages and mental health struggles have brought America's schools to the brink of crisis. Baseball has its first week stoppage in almost 30 years. MLB owners locked out the league's players after failing to reach a collective bargaining agreement. Oof. All right, now going into Cheddar News and Need to Know for today. First off, SCOTUS takes action on abortion. SCOTUS's opinions on abortion, not actions. Sorry, I read that wrong. From the New York Times. The Supreme Court likely has the 5 votes it needs to significantly roll back abortion rights, judging by the oral arguments presented in the case Dobbs versus Jackson. All 6 justices that make up the court's conservative majority appeared willing to uphold the Mississippi law that would let states ban abortion much earlier than current precedent allows. Justice Sonia Sotomayor, speaking for the liberal wing, warned that the court risks losing legitimacy and may not survive the stench of overturning the precedent set in Roe.
Mm-hmm.
From CNN, a 4th victim has passed away following the shooting at an Oxford high school in Michigan. Justin Schilling was a 17-year-old student at the school. The suspected gunman has been charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and terrorism. Prosecutors say they believe the shooting was premeditated and that the suspect used a handgun purchased by his father on Black Friday.
Oopsie.
So I think there's where the...
That's probably where they... Yeah, because he didn't put it up, but still, I don't see how you can do that.
There's a petition to rename Oxford's football stadium. Well, I can see that because the shooter was not an adult, so they could not legally own a firearm, and yet their father gave him one anyway. So technically, in that case, the father did break the law by doing that.
Yeah, true.
There's a petition to rename Oxford's football stadium after one of the victims, Tate Meyer, a star player who was shot as he tried to disarm the gunman, according to fellow students. From the Associated Press, President Biden is planning to announce today that people with private insurance can get reimbursed for at-home COVID tests, and that international travelers will have to test negative within a day of departing for the U.S. The mask mandate for travel was also being extended into March. The new measures are part of a White House strategy for containing the Omicron variant, which has now been confirmed to be in the country. The first infected patient is a fully vaccinated resident of San Francisco who returned from South Africa on November 22nd. From The Guardian, former President Trump tested positive for COVID 3 days before his first debate against President Biden last September, according to a bombshell excerpt from the new book by Mark Meadows, Trump's chief of staff at the time. Meadows reveals that Trump threw a positive test on September 26, the same day he presided over the infamous Rose Garden ceremony that's thought to have been a super spreader event. He then got a negative result with a second test before he started to feel sick, according to Meadows.
Should have just put some of that Clorox throughout his veins like he told the rest of us to do. Maybe help.
The positive test was 6 days before Trump announced he had COVID. In that 6-day window, in addition to the debate, Trump went to a campaign rally and presided over an indoor ceremony with Gold Star families that he later suggested could have been where he contracted the virus. From USA Today, Capital One is ditching all overdraft fees and becoming the biggest consumer bank to get rid of the controversial and hated practice of charging customers about $30 when they overdraw their accounts. Capital One did not give a reason for the shift and said it would cost the company about $150 million a year in revenue. Ally was the last retail bank to drop the fees, but the big banks, Chase, Wells Fargo, Citi, Bank of America, still have them in some form. From Reuters, Jack Dorsey's mobile payments company Square is changing its name to Block.
Nice.
I love that. The new name is a nod to the blockchain and reflects Dorsey's stated ambitions to double down on crypto. The corporate rebrand is similar to Facebook changing its name to Meta in that it won't affect the company's core businesses, which include Square, Cash App, and Tidal. From ESPN, the Women's Tennis Association is pulling out of China entirely, immediately suspending all tournaments in the country in response to questions over the status of Peng Shuai, the Grand Slam champion who accused the top Chinese party official of sexual assault before disappearing from the public. The head of the WTA says he still hasn't spoken directly with Peng. The move is in contrast with a more indifferent attitude coming from the International Olympic Committee. Longtime IOC member Dick Pound, I would hate to have a name like that, says the unanimous conclusion of the committee is that Peng is fine. Beijing hosts the Winter Olympics in 64 days. From ABC News, Alec Baldwin says he didn't pull the trigger of the gun that killed cinematographer Helena Hutchins. There we go. On the set of Rust. The actor told ABC's George Stephanopoulos, in an interview.
There you go.
There we
go.
In an interview airing in primetime tonight that he has no idea how the live round got into the chamber of the prop gun. Meanwhile, investigators in New Mexico have zeroed in on the film's ammo supplier on the theory it may have accidentally sent live rounds to the set.
Oh my God.
Oof. From ESPN, MLB owners have locked out the players, starting the clock on the league's first work stoppage in 26 years. The collective bargaining agreement between the MLB and the players' union have lapsed at midnight, with both sides still far apart on a new labor contract. The lockout means team officials and players cannot communicate with each other, including with respect to free agency and trades. The league and the union now have until March to strike a deal without impacting the start of the 2022 regular season. All right, that concludes today's current events for today. Lots going on in the news today. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about overcoming the fear of failure in our inspiration segment. So stick around. You're listening to the Rat Morning Show on WWSU 106.9 FM. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
If you are tired of mainstream radio, then
And we're back to the Wright Morning Show on WWSU 106.9 FM. Welcome back to the Wright Morning Show on WWSU 106.9 FM while we listen to Harmony try and figure out what she just found in her house.
Fancy feast.
Fancy feast. Ooh, there you go. Moogle will
It's a
enjoy
Moogle
that.
treat.
There-
Oh, yeah, and today's the perfect day because it's Thursday, correct?
Yes.
It's his fancy feast day today.
Oh, nice. So you found that just in time.
Yeah, let's keep him busy and out of my way.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about fear of failure and how to mindfully overcome it. And this is written by Michael Vestola. But first, a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh. The only way to ease our fear and to be truly happy is to acknowledge our fear and look deeply at its source. Instead of trying to escape from our fear, we can invite it up to our awareness and look at it clearly and deeply. My daughter began taking tumbling classes a week before her 8th birthday. She had been dancing since the age of 3, and those classes included instructions for cartwheels and roundoffs. The harder stuff, like the back walkover, required tumbling or gymnastics classes, and she wanted a chance to be able to show off those moves during the annual dance recital. My wife wasn't interested in watching our daughter repeatedly and blindly dive backward in a bendy arc, each time hoping her hands met the ground firmly enough to slow down the momentum of her trailing head and torso. But I was interested. Her dancing wasn't exciting to me at that point because the skills involved weren't physically challenging yet, but that would come later. Each back walkover was a potential catastrophe, and that made them fun to watch. Tumbling classes are not cheap, and it was apparent to me that a single class a week was a slow way to acquire the skill. So we came to an agreement that we would try to spend at least a little time each day practicing things she was learning in class. This would be like quality father-daughter coaching time, except I had no background in tumbling, coaching, athletics, or not being an overbearing control freak. I would be the one doing most of the learning. Obviously, there's no technical challenge too complex that it cannot be mastered by watching 2 or 3 related YouTube videos by experts whose credentials you have not bothered to verify and are not qualified to assess. That sounds like YouTube. And that's where my training began. I'm going to pause the article here for a second on that note. It's funny, though, because although that can be true, YouTube is the reason for me being able to figure out how to repair my grandma's air conditioner when it broke down.
Nice.
So
yeah,
I credit
can be a very handy thing.
I will credit YouTube for that because thanks to YouTube, a neighbor and I were able to repair the air conditioner. That could have easily been a $100 service call, but it only cost about, when we fixed it, it only cost about $20. We just had to get a new capacitor and a couple of new wires.
Service call plus your labor plus your part plus whatever else you needed to do. Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you were to get a technician out there. So the neighbor and I fixed it ourselves, and it worked it worked since up until I moved out. So. Anyway, continuing the article. So YouTube's not all bad. You just have to be mindful about what you watch.
Exactly.
So YouTube, that's where my training began, with good intentions and numerous short videos of young girls in leotards plunging backwards into smooth back bends while their lead legs fluttered up and over their bodies and their trailing legs followed seamlessly after a graceful full-body hinge. That is a long sentence. The cheaply produced clips became a source of embarrassment when my YouTube account synced with my work laptop. Whoopsie. I remember stammering through an explanation to my students for the video recommendations that followed a TED Talk I had shown them on a classroom projector, as they collectively grimaced. Not being aware of any of the finer points of the movements only fueled my coaching confidence, and my daughter was soon mastering bridge kickovers, back bend kickovers, and a short time later, the back walkover. She would appear at her weekly class, suddenly able to easily perform a skill that was out of reach the week before, and I loved that. Within months, I had assembled a trampoline in the yard without consulting my wife or my daughter first.
Oh, honey, if you see somebody bouncing up and down, I put a trampoline in the backyard.
The basement's piles of assorted clutter were repositioned to make room for large gymnastics tumbling mats. A smaller one was added later at some point of the clutter, as some point of the clutter was donated to area charities. A third would eventually stretch the combined mats the length of the room diagonally, with the last section rising vertically against the far wall as a protective barrier against my daughter's growing gymnastics awesomeness.
Ooh.
With the basement a de facto shrine to her hobby, I was emboldened to live vicariously through my only child's growing list of technical accomplishments, which I'm to understand is always completely healthy and never a problem, except when it is. Relatively early in our collaboration, I treated my daughter to the sort of pep talk that makes 8-year-olds cry and not want to learn anything from Hugh, and it would not be the last. She kept working with me, though. Even if I occasionally barked at her about her attitude like a stereotypical high school football coach, she still wanted to practice and improve. That willingness to endure my nonsense quickly became important. The back handspring was not conquered as easily as the previous dozen or so skills, and that was frustrating to the both of us. We tread water for months, her arms refusing to support the weight of her backward springing body, and she seemed to enjoy our practice time less than before. And that was true for me as well. It was great being a successful, inexperienced, unqualified tumbling coach. The less successful version just felt painfully aware that he wasn't experienced or qualified to know how to address a repetitive breakdown in form. Do I yell at her arms? Can he motivate an appendage like a drill sergeant? It was a mystery. I cannot recall how many YouTube clips, message board recommendations, poorly described alignment changes, and conditioning drills I subjected her to over in that period of time. It was too many, and our shared frustration made me harder to be around. But I was confronting the reality of my coaching limitations, one failed experiment after the other. With hindsight, this was the most important period for our collaboration and my growth as her coach. Nothing was working, progress was invisible, and the only thing I could do was behave in a way that encouraged her to continue. Thankfully, my mindfulness practice was helping me develop my own skills, and those mindfulness skills would help me recognize the detrimental role that fear was playing in my coaching. Our time in the basement became a laboratory for my own mindfulness practice. Barely 6 months after beginning our collaboration, my daughter had lost faith in herself and in the process. Just bringing my full presence to her in that atmosphere was a challenging spiritual exercise, especially when I assisted her with repetition after repetition of back handsprings, and every part of me wanted to shout at her bending elbows for failing us both. But the first move for this practice was to go into the basement with the intention to practice mindfulness. Yes, if you are a mindfulness maximalist like me, you are usually trying to practice bringing a deeper level of attention to whatever you are doing. But more challenging situations can benefit from clearer intentions. My next move was to deconstruct the reactions that I was experiencing. Those reactions consisted of mental images, mental talk, and emotional body sensations. Noticing the sensations that arise when I am frustrated gives me a handhold for dealing with the reaction skillfully. The third move was to bring my attention to prominent sensations. In those practices, thinking is a sensation, and I would try to get a clear sense of my inner chatter and visuals. Oh, what's that about?
Oh, nothing. I just noticed I have toothpaste on my shirt.
Oh my gosh.
What is that wintry green spearminty smell? Oh, it's me. Funny.
Fixing a reactive sensation in attention while supporting your daughter's lower back as she leaps backward is a bad idea, so I would consciously pause between repetitions. The frustrated thoughts and emotions expressed by the body could be embarrassingly dramatic. I was occasionally angry at reality for not honoring my efforts. Did reality not understand how much time I had spent on YouTube?
Did your reality not understand that you were pushing the issue?
Importantly, I didn't dismiss or dispute the content of my thoughts. I practiced acceptance and non engagement. The assumption here is that resisting your emotional resistance only creates more resistance, like trying to smother a brush fire with dried leaves. It just won't work.
No.
That was my fourth move, to have equanimity with what I was feeling, except when I couldn't. Then I tried to have equanimity. That is such a weird word.
Equanimity.
Equanimity with my inability to have equanimity with what I was feeling. Failing that, I tried to have equanimity with my failure to have equanimity with my lack of equanimity. It was
Lord.
equanimity all the way down.
This person needs to write a little bit better and stop using
gosh.
the same friggin' word.
My fifth and final move was to recognize insight. It is easy to dismiss some insights as common sense or something you should have already known about yourself, but that might lead to a missed opportunity to learn and grow, especially if you are already experiencing emotionally immature reactions in response to reality being mean to you. The insight that emerged from my mindfulness practice during that period of stagnation was that I was afraid of failure. I was afraid that I would fail as a coach and that my daughter would fail as a gymnast, and there was nothing I could yell at her elbows to change that. I was maybe most afraid that I was teaching an 8-year-old hard work doesn't always pay it off, and your best isn't always good enough, and it isn't always worth the time and effort to learn how to do hard things. Those lessons aren't entirely wrong, they're just beside the point. My greatest fear should have been for her to no longer enjoy doing something she wants to do because of me. I knew from the season I ineptly YouTube coached her soccer mom a couple years earlier that young children have an incredible ability to still enjoy the things well-meaning adults are accidentally making less fun. But this was different. My fears weren't just making me less effective as a coach, they were sending the message that our time together could only be enjoyable if she was making clear progress. I didn't believe and didn't want her to believe it either. I committed to change my approach. By the time the back handspring became another easy skill, coaching had become a deliberate practice of being present with my daughter. I would encourage her to explore her boundaries and to celebrate her efforts, even when they did not represent visible progress. Several years later, I still offer myself the same encouragement when my own practice of being present falls short of my expectations, as it often does. To be fully present for the other, even for a moment, we cannot habitually neglect to offer the same openness to our own difficult features, and fear can make those features particularly hard to view with compassion. Each time we descend the stairs to the basement, we do so as different versions of ourselves. It is wise to be generous and assume the well-meaning tumbling coaches in all of us are trying their best. There is nothing broken in us that patience, consistency, and the right YouTube video cannot fix. And my phone is just now notifying me that I may have earned a 1997 refund for safe driving habits. Even though I don't have a car.
You drive your bicycle habits. There we go.
So anyway, this article was written by Michael Vestola. What do you think, Harmony? What do you think about the fear of failure and overcoming it?
The only fear is fear itself.
Yeah.
As a famous person once quoted. But, I feel like it's what it says. Fear, F-E-A-R, false expectations appearing real.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's the fear of the failure, I feel more so is something that we are, like, fear is anger, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Just another word for it. And I feel like we get angry with ourselves for not being able to do what it is that we are setting out to do. And then it turns into, oh my God, I can't do this. I'm so irritated. I'm so mad. I'm so frustrated. And then it just becomes like a giant mess.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like, I don't know. I don't really care for the way that article was written, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, it's more like he said. It's more of a, you want your child to know that you're not just spending that time with them, as quality time, that there are other times outside of doing that exercise that are quality, and that's not the only thing. I feel like, honestly, getting off on, other subjects too, I can feel this is where parents have that competitive edge
Mm-hmm.
with their kids. They want them to be great, wonderful, this or that, and it's like he said, well, even though we have the expectation, the kids still find fun in it. No, they don't. Get it right,
Mm.
Dad. That's not always the case, because I can cite a time when my son was in high school, and he was on the wrestling team for a very short period of time, and there was a young man that was in there with him who was in the locker room crying one day
Mm.
because it was too much. And he's like, well, just quit. And the guy's like, I can't quit. My dad wants me to do this. And this poor guy is wrestling, football, basketball, and
Oh,
not by
jeez.
his choice. So I think there's like a fine dividing line of where, you're pushing, and there's only so much your kids can take. But I feel like, fear is also imposed upon people, especially in cases like this particular one that, she's trying time and time again to get things right. No matter how nice and easy and whatever flow that you have, and you're still trying to help your kid, there are some things that are lost there. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like there's a different tact to take around that. So, um, and I would say that if she had wanted to quit at that point, by all means, if she feels like that's something that she needs to do for herself, then geez, go for it. Quit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you're failed. You tried. It just doesn't happen to be for you.
Yeah.
But with him, and we hear he's talking about, oh, tumbling lessons are expensive, and blah da 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 da, and it's like, that's nice, but it's at least she tried.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
She
definitely.
gave
You
it.
want, you
She
want,
gave it her effort.
you
That's
want,
all I got to say. Yeah.
yeah, you want to make sure as a parent that your children have free will in terms of what they want to do, because they are not going to succeed, or even if they do succeed, they're not going to be happy about it if you are putting your own agenda on your children.
And that's what that article says to me with the way he's written it. It was his agenda to keep pushing. I mean, some people think, oh, I'm going to write this article and it'll help people to get an idea and understand. Note, he
Hmm.
said his mindful practice.
Yeah, he was talking about his.
He was talking more about him than her. And then when he said, and then I showed her, to her boundaries and this and that. But that's so up against the wall. It's so secondary as to, more or less, I'm hearing more about him and his crap than hers.
Mm-hmm.
So, no kudos to that article. I'm sorry.
And sometimes we get that we take other lessons than what was intended from the article, and that's the beauty of our inspiration segment here on the radio station.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, it is Thoughtful Thursday. I'm probably not going to have enough time to get into the full article, but we're going to talk a little bit about the Big Bang Theory and how it relates to
Ooh,
creationism.
I like that.
Yeah, so
I can sink my fangs into that one.
we'll be right back on the Wright Morning Show. Stick around.
America, your children have an amazing superpower. They can help save lives by not having play dates. That's right. By replacing get-togethers with virtual play dates and video chats, they can help slow the evil spread of germs.
Welcome back to the Rat Morning Show on WWSU 106.9 FM, Dayton's Right Choice. We Oh, bless you, Dane.
Storm warning.
We got a hurricane warning now in effect.
Hurricane
for
Harmony in town.
Greene County. No.
Oh, God.
Let's talk
Perfect timing.
Yeah. That was great.
Oh
Welcome
my
to the
God.
Right Sneeze on the Right Morning Sneeze.
Right morning hurricane.
All right. This is from Nautilus. Our Thoughtful Thursday is about the Big Bang. The Big Bang is hard science and also a creation story. In some ways, the history of science is the history of a philosophical resistance to mythical explanations of reality.
Mm.
In the ancient world, when we asked, where did the world come from? We were told creation myths. In the modern world, we are instead told a convincing scientific story, the Big Bang Theory, first proposed in 1927 by the Belgian Roman Catholic priest Georges Lemaitre. It is based on observations that galaxies appear to be flying apart from one another, suggesting that the universe is expanding. We trace this movement back in space and time to nearly the original point of the explosion, the single original atom from which all of the universe emerged 14 billion years ago.
Oh, wow.
Now, while this is based on empirical measurement and quantitative reasoning, it is also a creation story and therefore shares some of the traits of the stories we have come before. For one thing, it resonates with the ethos of the modern age. This is the era of big explosions, like those in White Sands and over Nagasaki. Also, like all creation stories, it explains in comprehensible language something which otherwise requires unobtainable categories of thought. After all, we cannot really know what the world was like before its creation, but we do see how things around us change, grow, are born, and die. And like the
Mm.
ancients, we fashion those observations into the story of our creation. Yeah. Meow.
Yeah, it's woolly mammoth Moogle running down the hallway.
So the oldest creation myth on the planet from perhaps 2600 BC was given as a preface to a Sumerian poem about the descent of Gilgamesh's friend Enkidu into the underworld. The account begins, after heaven had moved away from earth, and after earth had been separated from heaven, after the name of man had been fixed, after an end carried off heaven, after Enlil had carried off Ki, dot, dot, dot. At some point, the myth tells us heaven and earth were united and then they were separated. The separation of sky and earth made possible the appearance of man. The poem introduces us to elements that we see repeated again and again in ancient myths. First, creation was not from nothing, which you never find in ancient myth, but from something that was already there. What was it? In a tablet listing the Sumerian gods, the goddess Namu is said to be the mother who gave birth to heaven and earth, and her name is written as a sign that means sea. Second, the act of naming and spoken language is deeply mixed into the act of creating. Man is created only after his name had been fixed. So let's see here. We see these two elements used in the pyramid texts, which come from Egypt around the year 2300 BC and are the oldest religious texts in the world and some of the oldest texts of any kind. They refer to the creation of the world in order to guarantee the vigor of the glorified king buried in an artificial primeval hill. And on this hill, Atum, the creator god, took his stand. O Atum Keper, you who were on high of the primeval hill, you did arise as the Ben bird of the Ben stone in the Ben house in Heliopolis. You did spit out what was Shu. You did sputter out what was Tefnut. You did put your arms around them as the arms of a Ka, for your Ka was in them. Atum, the complete one, is the sun god, always the great god in Egypt, the principle of unified creative power. Keper, the scarab, means the becoming one, hence the principle of generation, a force for change and progress. The creation is imagined as an event, like when the Ben bird, our word phoenix in Greek, bursts suddenly, astoundingly from the reeds. Then the Ben bird alights on top of the primeval mound, symbolized in Egyptian architecture as the obelisk, in the Temple of the Sun in the City of the Sun, Heliopolis, near modern Cairo. And that's what the moment of creation was like to the ancient Egyptians. Skipping ahead, for most Westerners, the most familiar myth of the creation, even a canonical account, is verses 1 through 8 in Genesis. It is therefore hard to hear the words in their original meanings. An examination of the opening lines of the Hebrew text, however, reveals parallels with the creation myth of ancient Mesopotamia. In the beginning, when Elohim created the heaven and the earth was a formless and unbounded mass. It was also a mess.
It probably was a mess, too. Cleanup crew.
With darkness covering its fluid chaos and with a wind from Elohim sweeping over it. Elohim said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Elohim saw the goodness of the light and separated it from the darkness. The light he called day, and the darkness night. The evening and morning came into being, a complete day, and then Elohim said, "Let there be a partition in the middle of the watery chaos, spreading out to separate the waters." And so it came about, and the partition divided the waters below it from those above. Elohim called the partition sky. Skipping ahead. Why does the sea feature so prominently in Sumer and Judeo-Christian myth? We take from what we see around us and suppose that the universe is governed by the same processes. Human babies are born in a sack of water, and of course all sorts of things emerge from the sea. The sea is formless and dark and mysterious, and hence an excellent symbol for the conditions that logic tells us must have existed before creation. Thank you, clock.
Yes.
Today, we look to the shapeless, formless sky for our creation story and not the sea. For the layperson, the naming of the process discovered by science, Big Bang, is in some ways the content and comfort of the story. Even as science reveals new layers of our reality, creation stories remain just that. Stories giving us explanations in comprehensible language of something which otherwise requires unobtainable categories of thought. So you can read the full article from getpocket.com or from Nautilus. I had to skip a few sections because of time, but that's the general gist of it. What do you think?
Well, I think we may have to pick that up on the Harmonic Connection and bring Thoughtful Thursday into significant Sunday there. I think it's something that, I'm hearing a lot of things in there on the spiritual level that ring for me of things that I've read, things that, I know to be true. So I feel like we'll pick that one up. You can bring your story
Yeah, so
on Sunday, and we'll talk about creation on the Harmonic Connection on Sunday.
Sunday at 2 p.m. on WWSU Radio, so stay tuned for that. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the Rat Morning Show. We're here every morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Thank you, Harmony, for coming on.
Yep, thank you for having me, as always. Everybody have a great rest of your week.
And we will see you tomorrow.
You are now listening to WWSU